Hi, I'm Zach Hunter, Sports Information Director for the BYU men's track and field team. I've had the privilege of working with many of the 9 current and former BYU Cougars headed to the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. These former BYU athletes headed to the Olympics have unique qualities and values that they have learned in their time in the BYU athletic system that can apply to anyone and help in everybody's own journey through life. Today we sit down with Dustin Williams. This is Cougar Gold.
Key component is just keeping them healthy, and then part of my role as a head athletic trainer or co-head athletic trainer is just communicating with the coaches, making sure that they know what's going on with each of the athletes.
Dustin Williams is the co-head athletic trainer for Team USA Track and Field and the head athletic trainer for BYU Track and Field. He'll oversee not just the BYU athletes in Paris, but all Team USA Track and Field athletes, which includes names like Noah Lyles, Anna Hall, and Parker Valby. This was one of my favorite conversations so far. Dustin is such a good person and supporter of all the athletes he interacts with. He really embodies everything good about the behind the scenes of the sport. I am with Dustin Williams, the co-head athletic trainer for USA Track and Field, as well as the head athletic trainer for BYU Track and Field here in Provo. Thanks so much, Dustin, for coming down and sitting with me today.
Thanks, Zach. I'm excited to be here with you.
Okay, so we want to talk about, you've been around so many big names in the sport of track and field in all areas of your life, but you've really interacted with these high-level athletes. What is that like, being surrounded by these big names in the sport?
Yeah, it's really a dream come true for myself to be where I am and to work with so many wonderful Olympic athletes, and something I couldn't have dreamed more of when I was a kid, and so it's just awesome to be there and help them to achieve their goals and dreams that they've worked their whole life to do and to be on that big stage.
Well, yeah, and you've helped so many. I was looking through the list. I was like, wow, I recognize that name. I follow that person on Instagram. Oh, wow, they follow Dustin. That's insane. But first off, let's give shout out to the biggest Olympian in your life, your wife, Jill. She's an Olympian. Let's give her a shout out. What events did she compete in and what years?
Yeah, so she's a 2-time Olympian in shot put. And so she competed in 4 Olympic trials for the U.S. And then had the opportunity to represent her country at 2008 and 2012 Olympics. 2008, I was still kind of up and coming in my profession, so it wasn't there. But 2012, we had the opportunity to be on the same team together, so it was amazing.
You were the same team. Oh, that is so fun. Okay, yeah. How did you guys meet?
So as fitting through track and field, both of us were kind of post-college careers. And when I first started working at BYU, she was here working on her master's degree. And then she left. Her coach got a job at University of Arizona. So she went there, was training, and I knew him. When I worked at Utah State, when I was at school as an athletic trainer at Utah State, he was working there. And so he had kind of introduced us professionally to help her with some injuries she had coming back, trying to make the 2008 Olympic team. So I actually worked with her at the Olympic trials in 2008. And then after our both busy summers, I was on the Paralympic staff that year, and she made the Olympic team. She decided to come back to Provo to finish her master's, and then shortly after that, we started dating. And so the rest is, I call history, because we continue to be able to chase our dreams and goals together, and that's what's been kind of fun about our journeys. So she now is retired. She retired after the 2016 Olympic trials, and works as a coach at UVU. So.
That is so fun. It's fun to see the other half, the better half of all these Olympians. I guess she's the better half. But it's cool to see your perspective in that. And you're so tied in with the sport yourself that you've seen so many angles of what these Olympians are going through. Let's talk a little bit about our BYU Olympians. We have so many this year. We have a record number for Team USA, which is amazing. And so you oversee the track and field athletes, not just for BYU, but for everyone. Let's talk about these BYU athletes. What are they like? What ones have you interacted with in kind of your journey with them?
Yeah, it's been amazing with the track and field athletes because I've been back at BYU for about 6 years now. So each of them, I've worked with them at some point during their BYU career. And it's exciting to see them continue to kind of, I would almost say they will look at what I was doing and say, I want to be on that team. I want to do those type of things and be able to see them achieve those goals and dreams. Each of them have been at different phases of their career as well. And so it's awesome to see and to know that I've been able to support them in one way or another.
I want to do this fun exercise. Let's just talk briefly about each athlete and kind of what you've seen that stood out to you from what's kind of brought them this much success in their life. We'll start with Connor Mance. What kind of sets him apart?
Yeah, Connor is one person that's just always so determined. He's always putting in the extra and always asking, what more can I do? And it's just amazing to watch him succeed. Each of these athletes have had little setbacks at some point in their career, and he definitely had that. He had some disappointment for the 2020 Olympic trials. He was wanting to compete in those and got injured and had to kind of change his goals and aspirations, and then really put his sights on 2024. And it's amazing to have him on this team and be able to work with him after what he's been able to overcome. And he continues to have little challenges, but that's what being an athlete's all about, is overcoming those challenges.
Well, and yeah, I think there's like an awesome photo I saw too of during that time in 2020, both Connor and Clayton were injured, right? They're in, is it like, it's like a water like treadmill that you guys have down in the training room?
Yeah, so HydroWorks underwater treadmill.
Okay, and so that is, what's the benefit of that, I guess, for the layman listening?
Yeah, so that helps them to be able to run without as much impact. So the water disperses the weight. And so it's like, you kind of could call it somewhat like running on the moon type of thing. And so we have the HydroWorks as well as the Alter G boost type treadmills that help with that. And it's really essential tools in helping our athletes to be able to recover from injuries and get back as quickly as they can.
Okay. So it's Connor, Clayton, a lot of these athletes spend a lot of time on that treadmill is what I kind of take it. That takes a different level of commitment for sure.
Yes, definitely.
All right, let's talk about Clayton Young. What sets him apart above the rest?
Clayton's similar. It was amazing to watch him achieve the crown as well. He was the NCAA champion 2019.
In the 10K.
In the 10K, and then just kind of had to be patient throughout the rest of his professional career and be able to, he had different injuries as well. Just, COVID kind of put things back behind, but most noting for him is he had a knee injury that he had to have surgery. And any type of surgery is always challenging to overcome, but Clayton was very determined, and he came back within 6 months and set a PR. And it was awesome to be able to see that and just have those goals and sights set on. And I think the other cool thing about Clayton is he's kind of been that little dark horse. That
he loves
everyone
the underdog
knew
mentality.
He had the opportunity. He had what it took to make the team, but not everyone felt like he could perform when he needed to, and he showed that he could. And I'm excited to have him kind of be able to prove himself again on the big stage.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. All right, let's talk Courtney Wayment. What about her? I loved our conversation, by the way, with Courtney. Go check it out to all the listeners out there. But Courtney Wayment, one of a kind. What is she like?
Courtney, similar, overcome some different challenges. She had the opportunity to be an NCAA champion and then just continue to just improve every year since then. And it's been fun to watch her just, it seemed like there's no limits. And excited to see what she can continue to do. She had the good opportunity to represent in the U.S. in the last 2 World Championships. So she's had the opportunity to get some experience, but first Olympics, so excited to see what she can do.
Well, I'm excited for her, and kind of made me think of our other female Olympian, Whitney Morgan. So her conversation that we had, I referenced some number I found was 9 injuries in her career since she's been with Coach Taylor. And then when I said that, she's like, oh, it's way more than that. But working with her, what is it like working with Whitney Morgan, who seems that she's just had so many injuries, but also so much success in her career? What's that like?
Whitney's really learned to adjust and modify what she needs to do. One of the stories this year in track and field was Parker Valby that come out that her training load consists of a lot of cross training. And I think Whitney really showed that was possible. And that was how Whitney was. She was very determined. She always did a lot of cross training.
So for cross training, what is that like?
Yeah, so they're finding ways to train without the impact and without the stress on the injury. So most common is using an elliptical machine, some swim, and then as we talked about the HydroWorks or the AlterG treadmills that de-weight them a little more. So that's the key. And so finding ways to still really stress the body and get a good workout, but without stressing the injury. And that's part of my job is to be able to work with the athlete, the coach, and finding ways to do that. So instead of saying this is what they can't do, this is what they can do. And that's what really I think sets some of these athletes apart, is those that are determined and really do everything they can to stay in shape. And so when their injury allows them to get back on the track and they're ready to go. Their body's still trained and they're able to perform. And that's one thing that Whitney, I think, has been great at being able to do. And she showed it again this year, coming back from a knee surgery. As I mentioned with Clayton, it's just never an easy comeback. And she's been able to utilize the resources that she had to be able to make that comeback. And it's been awesome to watch that, because I definitely saw her do that multiple times as a BYU athlete. So it's great to see her do that as a professional athlete.
Definitely. And I guess to your point, these athletes, they are pushing themselves to the limit all the time. I remember my first day, I went to practice with as being a part of this organization, and I was seeing the boys run around the intramural fields. And I was talking with another athletic trainer about this, and he was telling me, he's like, these gentlemen, they put everything out there all the time. And that's, I guess, comes with the sport, is there is injuries when you do that so much. But thankfully, they have people like you who are experienced, who are out a third-party perspective that can kind of help them with that. And so that, yes, I totally see what you're talking about. These people, they put it out all the time. Yeah. That's what brings them so much success too.
Exactly. It's really that determination that they have to work through whatever trials or tribulations they have that come their way.
Yeah. And okay, let's talk about Kenneth Rooks, our 2023 really steepler of the year. Like, everything he did that year and has done since is amazing. Kenneth Rooks, let's talk about him.
It's been amazing to see his journey. He came in right after I came back to BYU, so I've been around him his whole career. And just to see the things that he's been able to accomplish is just unfathomable, I guess, and just an amazing young man, and it's just fun to watch him continue to kind of set the bar, I guess, and be able to keep accomplishing new things every year. From his freshman year, he qualified for NCAAs in the steeplechase. He had actually qualified to represent Team USA in the under 20 World Championships that year, but he was unable to go because he was leaving on his mission. And then he came back and then said, okay, well, I want to have that opportunity to represent Team USA. I'm going to shoot for the World Championships. And he made that team last year, even when he fell and had to get back up and finish and won the race. And it's interesting with Kenneth because I was trackside during that race, because after he won the NCAA championships, he was really excited and he jumped up on the podium and banged his knee.
Oh, I have not heard that. Wow.
Yeah. And so he didn't run for almost a week after NCAAs. And there was a pretty tight window. We only had 2 weeks. And so we were working daily to try to get his motion back and get him feeling better. So if you look in the video of him racing the USA championships, he had his knee taped. And it was because from that little accident he had.
That's why. Interesting.
And so when he fell, I thought he hit his knee again, but it had nothing to do with it. He just fell. And but thankfully the knee was okay, and he got up and finished and won the race. But that's part of the kind of behind the scenes that I was definitely like, oh no, is he going to be okay? And he he was okay. And, that was obviously my first question when I saw him. And he was just excited and elated. And he's like, oh, yeah, my knee's fine. I'm like, good. Sigh of relief, we're okay. And then we focused on, okay, what do we got to do to get you ready for world championships? And that's what's great with him. It's always, what's next? Okay, I did that, on to the next. And I can't wait to see what's next for him in his journey.
What a mentality that is too. I've talked with Kenneth a lot about what his mindset is like, and that is definitely something of what's next. Okay, we don't live in the past unless we're learning from it, is what he talks about. And then he's living in the moment a lot. He's very good at that. But then, okay, what's the next moment, right? Yeah. And that's really stood out to me about his mindset, and really all these Olympians too. They are very present. And they also look forward with a lot of hope, too. Yeah.
I think the unique thing with all our athletes at BYU is the faith that they have, and it helps them understand that everything happens for a purpose, and just take it with what they need to, and if it's defeat, there's a reason for that. And if it's success, there's another reason, and let's capitalize on that. And I think that's what's amazing to be able to kind of see in our Olympians that how they're able to take that defeat and build on it, and knowing that everything happens for a reason.
Well, and that's really, let's get into James Corrigan, because I feel that he may have not gotten defeated at the NCAA. He finished 9th in the steeplechase, but that kind of puts him out of contention in a lot of ways, it feels like, for the U.S. trials. But then he comes back, storms back, gets 3rd. Everyone's shook. And then a lot of last-ditch efforts to get him to the Olympics, but he's going.
Yep.
But for James Corrigan, he's our only current BYU athlete that's going. Last one in like 48 years. Which is crazy. Isn't that crazy, Dustin?
Oh, really?
It's insane. But what's James like through his kind of journey of running from your perspective?
Yeah, he's been very resilient as well. He's had little injuries, nothing major, but it's always been one that's like, okay, what I need to do, and then let's go for it. And it's just amazing from my side of things to be able to watch them succeed. And that's what's been awesome with James and then it's just, don't let it, defeat you. He easily could have been very defeated from his performance at NCAAs and just said, no, I'm ready. It's time to end the season. But he had the opportunity. He was qualified for the Olympic trials. He's like, I have nothing to lose, right? And then he had a great preliminary race, and I think it adds some confidence to him that, hey, I can compete, I can run with these guys. And then you look at that race, and one of the top U.S. steeplechasers besides Kenneth falls, and so he capitalized and just does what he need to put himself in that position to make the team. And that was unique, because unfortunately he wasn't on the team after the Olympic trials race, but he did what he needed to put him in that position, and then to go and to qualify, fly across the country and be able to what we call chase the standard was just amazing. And I knew he could do it. I mean, he had so much support. I mean, I was still at the Olympic trials. I was watching on my phone, just kind of keeping tabs and seeing there were still races going on.
I think everyone
the rest
was.
of the Olympic team, trying to make it. But he didn't care. He just had to go give him the opportunity to try, and then to go and PR by almost 9 seconds. Just unbelievable.
Well, I think it was so insane to see the coverage of that, where we had hired a freelance photographer to grab some content in Eugene of the trials at the same time that James was racing in Pennsylvania. And I was asking my freelance photographer, I was like, did you hear about James? Oh, he hit the standard. I was informing him. He goes, no, man, we all just went in the break room and watched it. I was like, the people at the trials are more interested in that than the trials. Yeah. But props to James. And yeah, he is just a resilient, level-headed athlete, and that's exciting to see.
It was put out there, this is what you have to do to make the team, and he went and did it. And that's what's awesome.
Yeah. Let's give a shout out to Rory Linkletter, Team Canada. still give him the love. He was a BYU alum. Did you work with Rory in his time here?
I did. When he was on the BYU track team, I've worked with him. And then I've seen him at the different, championships he's represent Canada for. In my role, I'm not able to help him because I have to work with just the U.S. athletes, but it's awesome to see what he's accomplishing post-BYU because I did work with him a lot during his career at BYU.
Awesome. What is he like, I guess, from the interactions that you've had with him? What's kind of his mentality?
Yeah. He's definitely, I think, very hardworking mentality. His wife was a collegiate athlete. And so I think he's got that where it's just a grinder. He's just going to put in the work that he needs to accomplish what he needs. And he's taken advantage of opportunities given to him. He moved to altitude down in Flagstaff and now he's being trained by still the American record holder in the marathon, Ryan Hall. And, and it's awesome to see him succeed. And I'm excited to see him in the Olympic Village and on the marathon start line.
Shout out Rory. We love Team Canada. It's a good place. All right. So you recently had a really cool press conference with some other athletes and some other trainers as part of the National Athletic Trainer Association. This was happening during the trials, but this whole press conference was about kind of mental health and recovery with these high-level athletes, these high-level Olympians. Walk me through kind of what were some of the highlights of that meeting.
Yeah, it was just awesome to be able to highlight what we do as athletic trainers to support and help the athletes, and especially in the mental health landscape, because it's definitely an area that I feel like has been neglected over the last 10, 15 years, but it's starting to become more highlighted as how important mental health is and how we got to make sure that each individual, especially athletes, are taking care of their mental health and how important how it can reflect on their performance.
I think that is definitely true. I mean, we see like Simone Biles, for instance, right? Like her whole story, as well as just not even just super big struggles, but just the weight and the pressure that these Olympians have is a lot on their plate. And through these interviews too, Dustin, it's been really cool to see how open these athletes are. Like, this is a struggle that I have in my profession. This is what I'm doing about it too. One of the quotes that from that press conference that I just love, that I guess I'll read back to you, but this is what you said that really stood out to me, and I think the listeners would like, is you said, "I think the most important thing that helps us is having trust with our athletes. If you don't have the trust, the athlete is not going to listen to anything you're going to say. That takes time to build that trust. I think the key component with that is hoping they will understand that you're going to be in their corner, whether they are on the podium or down in the dumps, wherever they're at." What powerful words, Dustin. That is amazing. I love that last line that you said, that whether they're in the highs or the lows, you're going to be there, and that's that trust. How do you build that trust with an Olympian?
Yeah. One common line I often use with people, and they said, "Hey, I'm going to be watching the Olympics for you." And I said, "Well, I'm a behind the scenes type of person. Hopefully you don't see me. If you do, something went wrong,
Something's
right?"
wrong, yeah.
And so as behind the scenes, it is important to help them no matter where they're at. And that's common. What we're doing is, behind the scenes, we're helping them overcome whatever roller coaster of journeys that they're on, and I think that's an important component. And we're just one piece of the puzzle. It's fortunate that our athletes at BYU and within USA Track and Field have a whole healthcare team to take care of them, all trained in different roles within healthcare professionals to help them. And that's what's amazing to be, as an athletic trainer, to be a part of that and to be there for the athletes and know they're not alone and they've got this team behind the team, to achieve what they need to. And if you ask each of the athletes, they'll highlight the team that they have. And I think that's what's wonderful to be a part of that. And I enjoy that.
Well, and that's what really stood out to me from that press conference too, is everyone was kind of hyping you up in a way, Dustin, of like, Dustin's helped me this way, Dustin's helped me that way. And it just really showed me and how much these athletes, you're right, they're the ones on the line, they're the ones competing, but there is a whole support network behind these people. And when they win, you all win.
Yep.
And I think how amazing it is when they recognize that and kind of show that too. From your time working with all these big names, is there any big story of kind of overcoming that you've seen in an athlete, BYU or not, that kind of has really stood out to you?
Wow. There's always so many, I think, people that I've like to overcome, but one I'll bring to you is we had an athlete that I worked with in my first World Championships in 2009 was Bernard Lagat, who ended up being one of the top distance runners for the U.S. over his years. He was unique. He had started running for Kenya and then went to college in the U.S. and then trained in the U.S. and was able to change his citizenship and represent the U.S. in many Olympics and World Championships. And so he was at the World Championships in 2009, and he was doing a tough double. He was doing the 1,500, 5,000 meter double. And during his final of the 1,500, which was his first race of the two championship races, he got stepped on and spiked and had a laceration on his ankle that needed stitches. And so after that race, our Team USA doctor sutured him, and then the next day he comes hobbling into our training room in the hotel and just said, I can't walk. I don't know how I'm going to run tomorrow. And so we had the opportunity to work with him, get him doing some things, and he was able to run out of that session and like have some confidence that he could run his race. And he was able to. He had 2 more races to go, and so he qualified for the finals and then ended up medaling in both events. And it was I feel like kind of that pivotal moment of my Olympic journey, because to this day, if you ask him about what happened, he'll tell you that story, and it's fun. Now he's a coach at University of Arizona, and so he's influencing the younger generation, and so there's always challenges that they're going to have, but to be able to overcome and utilize the resources, that's what's fun to be a part of that.
Wow, that is a story right there. Well, let's just enter kind of the last bit of our conversation. I want to get to know you a little bit personally, Dustin. We've gone on runs on all of these like trips we've been on with the team, but I want to get to know kind of a lightning round, if you will, a little bit about Dustin Williams. Okay, so what was your first Olympic memory?
Ooh, my first Olympic memory. So my first Olympic Games was in 2012. Oh man, I think my most, precious moment of that games was the opportunity to walk in closing ceremonies with my wife, holding her hand. That games wasn't a highlight. She was a medal favorite going into it and unfortunately got hurt while we were there at the Olympics. And so she still competed, but it didn't go as we hoped. But to be able to kind of finish off, celebrating the games with her, hand in hand, that was a kind of a pivotal moment. And now I look back, I may not ever have that opportunity again, and so take a bit. It was nice we were able to do that.
Wow.
And I think the other one that comes to mind is in 2008, I had the opportunity to work at the Paralympic Games. I was working with a sport called goalball, and it was amazing just the atmosphere of all the different athletes and their journeys that they had, because they've all had to overcome injuries to be able to be adaptive to be there. And they're all so selfless, and they also didn't want much help. You try to hold the door. Nope, I got it. No worries. It's like they've learned to adjust and be able to adapt in life with whatever injury they've had. And so those two are kind of my two highlights, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, those are definitely highlights for sure. That's amazing. All right. Next question. You're in Paris. It's a work trip for you, Dustin. But is there anything that you want to see? Any tourism that you're going to do?
Well, that's a good question. I've had the opportunity to be to Paris a couple times. One kind of key thing about Paris is it's really kind of close to my wife and I. My wife broke the American record in that stadium in 2011 during a Diamond League meet. And so it's still her furthest mark ever, that she threw. And so so that'll be fun to kind of step back into that stadium. I haven't been in that stadium since she did that. And so it'll be fun to have that opportunity. And my wife and daughter are coming over at the end of the Olympics to enjoy that experience. And then we're going to go off to Disneyland Paris for a couple days.
Oh, fun.
So having a 10-year-old, she's so excited. I think she's more excited for Disneyland than the Olympics, obviously. But,
probably.
But that's okay. So I'm excited too. But so, I think that'll be what I'm looking forward to. Get me through the 3 weeks of the grind of the Olympics, as though I can have fun at Disneyland Paris.
Yeah. What is the day-to-day, I guess, like for you with all the athletes there?
So track is a little bit unique as we're at the end of the Olympics. And so we'll have a lot of the athletes will arrive the day before opening ceremonies. They'll have the opportunity to walk in the opening ceremonies, and then they kind of get to the grind of training. And so we'll help them. They'll have practice times. The U.S. team has their own high performance center that the track athletes can utilize to practice. So we'll cover practices. We'll also be doing treatments in the village each day. And so the key component is just keeping them healthy. And then part of my role as a head athlete trainer or co-head athlete trainer is just communicating with the coaches, making sure that they know what's going on with each of the athletes. And then when day one starts, we have 10 days of competition.
Wow.
And it can be a grind because most of the time we have a morning session and then an evening session. So we oftentimes are at the track at 7 a.m. And then we don't leave. We'll sometimes have a chance to go back to the village in between and then back at 5 p.m. till usually almost midnight and repeat 10 days in a row. So it's definitely a time period. I don't sleep much, just kind of keep going. But I always have to remind myself, I'm not here for me, I'm here for them. And that helps. And then we'll finish off the games with the 2 marathons. So that'll be exciting part. And for me as a runner myself, I always make every effort to make sure I'm there at the marathon the whole time. And it'll be fun to have our BYU boys to support and help them.
What a fun final kind of climax to the Olympics on like second to last day. Is it the last day? So
the men's marathon's on the second to last day of the Olympics, and then the women, and this is the first time I think in a long time, the women will be the last day.
Oh, okay.
And so traditionally, there's always a marathon on the last day, depending on which one it is. But I think this is the first time that I know of in my 4th Olympics that it's been the women versus the men. But and then we'll finish it off with the closing ceremonies.
Cool. All right. Final question on my rapid fire list that has become less rapid fire, but insightful though too, Dustin. Favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie? I would have to go with Remember the Titans. I just love the storyline of it, and it definitely I think is my favorite one up there.
I think it was fun. We asked James Corrigan this question. He said, I would feel bad if it wasn't McFarland USA. And I was like, yeah. And then he goes, I don't know. And then we ended up on Nacho Libre. No, it was Napoleon Dynamite. He said his favorite. And I was like, that's not. He's like, they kickbox.
Yeah. You know what? My kind of second favorite, and you have to kind of the same thing as The Guardian.
The Guardian.
But, he was a high school swim champ and then became a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. Oh. And so I've always enjoyed that kind of resemblance. And, it was one of those type of things. He had the opportunity to probably go on and be a good swimmer, but had a car accident he was involved with. And so he didn't feel like he could keep swimming, but then decided to make a difference and become a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. So that's, I would follow that up with that.
Yeah, right. The trainer in you is like, hey, that recovery though.
Yeah. But awesome. We can't finish this, Zach, without giving a shout out because you helped me, hit my over 40 Masters PR in the marathon.
That's true.
Zach finished the last 6 miles with me and got me through the tough part of a marathon, the mile 20 to 26.2. So I appreciate that, Zach. And it's fun to be here knowing that we can help each other out, right?
That's true. I think it's fun that the relationships we have isn't just in this little interview, but it's like props to Dustin. Like he cruised through that Utah Valley Marathon. So
I only got a BQ by like 22 minutes. So that's all right. I'm getting there.
There we go. Well, it has been such a privilege and honor to talk with you today about kind of all facets of your life. And it's really cool to see someone who's involved with all of USA track and field and kind of your perspective on that. Really, just one final question for you, Dustin. What would you want the audience member who's turning on their TV to watch the Olympics to know about these BYU Olympians?
Yeah, I think the big key is you're going to find someone that you can relate to, their story, and just find that and have that help you in whatever way it can in your life. And I think that's what's amazing. And whether they're BYU Olympian or Olympian, find a way to relate with them and how it can help you to overcome the challenges that you might have day to day.
Well said. That's amazing. Well, thanks again, Dustin, for sitting down and sharing your perspective on all this.
Thanks, Zach. It was a pleasure.
Wow, what a great conversation with Dustin. He is such a light in everyone's life that he interacts with, and especially these Olympians. For a full list of BYU athletes in the Olympic Games, see BYUCougars.com. Cougar Gold is partnered with BYU Athletics and produced by Cleon Wall, Ethan Horn, and Jonas Guffey. Episodes are available on BYURadio.org, the BYU Radio app, and wherever you can find podcasts.